Regional variation in language. In this chapter, we investigate aspects of language variation based on where the language is used as a way of doing linguistic geography. The term linguistic variation or simply variation refer to the regional, social, or contextual differences in the ways that a particular language is used. Variation between languages, dialects, and speaker is known as interspeaker variation. Variation within the language of a single speaker is called intra-speaker. And the next, we should identify the particular variety that we have normally assumed where we refer to a language of English and Spanish. The standard language. Standard languages arise when a certain dialect begins to be used in written form, normally throughout a broader area than that of the dialect itself. The ways in which this language is used, example, in the administrative matters, literature, and economic life, that lead to the minimization of linguistic variation. Variation in grammar. Variation is the characteristic of language. There is more than one way of saying the same thing. Speaker may vary pronunciation, accent, word choice, or lexicon, or morphology and syntax, sometimes called grammar. Dialectology. Dialectology is the scientific study of linguistic dialect, a subfield of sociolinguistics. It studies variations in language based primarily on the geographic distribution and their associated features. Dialectology treats such topics as divergence of the two local dialects from a common ancestors and synchronic variation. Regional dialect. A regional dialect is not a distinct language but a variety of a language spoken in a particular area of a country. Some regional dialects have been given traditional names which mark them out as being significantly different from the standard variety spoken in the same place. What are the four major regional dialects? The four major dialect regions, the inland, north, the south, the west, and the midland. The first three shows a relatively uniform development of the three major sound shapes of American English, each moving in a different direction. Here's the pictures, the comparison of the major dialect boundaries. On the left side, the west, the above is north central, and below is the south, and the center is the midland. Isoglossis. Isogloss is the line on the map that marks the boundary between areas where the language features are different. An example of isogloss is the line in the map that shows the division of two populations which have different pronunciation for a specific vowel. Dialect boundaries. Dialect boundaries, when a number of isoglosses come together, a more solid line can be drawn, which indicates a dialect boundary. The dialect continuum regional variation is better viewed as a dialect continuum rather than having sharp breaks from one region to the next. The dialect continuum. A dialect continuum or dialect chain is a series of language varieties spoken across some geographical areas such that neighboring varieties are mutually intelligible, but the differences accumulate over distance so that widely separated varieties may not be. Bilingualism. Bilingualism is ability to speak two languages. It may be acquired early by children in regions where more adults speak two languages, example in French and dialectical German in Alsace. Diglossia. Diglossia, the coexistence of two varieties of the same language throughout a speech community. Often one form is literary or prestige dialect and other is the common dialect spoken by most of the population. Language planning. In social linguistics, language planning is a deliberate effort to influence the function, structure, or acquisition of languages or language varieties within a speech community. Pigeons, a grammatical, simplified form of a language used for communication between people not sharing a common language. Pigeons have a limited vocabulary, some elements of which are taken from local languages and are not native languages but arise out of language contact between speakers of other languages. Creoles. A Creole language, or simply Creole, is a stable, natural language that develops from the simplifying and mixing of the different languages into a new one within a fairly brief period of time. Often, a pidgin evolved into a full-fledged language. The Post-Creole Continuum. Post-Creole Continuum, or the simply Creole Continuum, is a dialect continuum of varieties of a Creole language between the most and least similar to the superstrate language, that is closely related language whose speakers assert or asserted dominance of some sort. Furthermore, regional accents shows great variation across the areas where English is spoken as the first language. This reading provided an overview of the many identifiable variation in pronunciation, deriving from the phoneme inventory of the local dialect, of the local variety of the standard English between various population of native English speakers.